Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. We're just chronicling the debacle of Obama's Asia trip, going together with the precipitous collapse of U.S. world influence under this feckless, disastrous leader. Remember when Sarkozy saw Obama working his way through a crowd, the question was, est-il faible? Is he a weakling? Well, yes, he's a weakling. He's a weakling. He's a coward. He's a coward on the home front. He's cringing and groveling in front of foreign potentates, but of course, suitably venomous, treacherous, and full of poisonous attacks for his own base. Time to dump Obama. I don't know what more anybody needs. We'll get to the dump Obama dossier in a minute. You can keep up with all of this, of course, at tarpley.net. Big post-election evaluations essay, quite detailed, goes through the entire dump Obama ferment, dump Obama at Firedog Lake, primary Obusha at Citizens for Legitimate Government, various congressional figures, governors, others, all attacking Obama. Everybody fed up with Obama. Time to dump him. This is an albatross around your neck, oh progressives, self-styled. So at the G20, it was impossible to orchestrate the anti-Chinese front. Part of it is that 6 or 7 of these countries actually have trade surpluses of their own with China. Not everybody runs a deficit with China. Some places, Saudi Arabia, they have a big surplus. Same thing with other countries that manufacture semi-finished commodities and other things. So the picture vis-a-vis China is not as simple as the U.S. would like to make it look. Now, the interesting thing, again, the world attacks the Federal Reserve. This is the Wall Street Journal, front page story, Tuesday, November 9th. Global backlash against the Fed is growing. China and Russia join Germany in the scolding. The scolding comes from Schäuble, German finance minister. Quote, it doesn't add up when the Americans accuse the Chinese of currency manipulation and then artificially lower the value of the dollar. In other words, the U.S. is the currency manipulator. Right on, Schäuble. Dilma Rousseff, president-elect of Brazil. This is interesting. The last time there was a competitive devaluation of currencies, it ended up where it did in the Second World War. Yes, that's Ramsay MacDonald, the hypocrite, the competitive devaluator, the champion and the tremendous proponent of beggar my neighbor. The competitive devaluation of the British pound starting on September 21st, 1931, the central date of that entire world economic depression of 1929 to 1939. That was it. So she's right. And it's well known that if commodities cannot cross borders, armies soon will. So you've got to have some means of letting this happen. But the hot money does not have to follow. We'll get to the question of capital controls in a minute. The spokesman for the Russian government, Arkady Dvorkovich, says that Medvedev wants to insist that actions like the U.S. pumping cash into the economy have to be preceded by consultations with others in the G20. And here's the most damning in some ways. The Chinese finance minister, Zhu Guangyao, the U.S. decision does not recognize as a country that issues one of the world's major reserve currencies that the U.S. has an obligation to stabilize capital markets. Well, we don't need to look into the details so much. The idea is that they're fed up with the Fed. Fed up with the Fed. Dump Bernanke. Nationalize the Fed. Take an opportunity when the Fed is weak internationally. Washington Post. The Fed move at home trails the U.S. into Seoul. Backlash from Europe. Obstacles against key goals at the G20 Economic Summit. Well, you can forget those key goals. The underlying conflicts concerning this question of who has a deficit and who has a surplus and who needs to have more domestic market emphasis and so forth. This is basically the U.S. attacking Germany, China, and failing on the currencies. There's a lot of resentment against China, which, of course, the U.S. was unable to marshal. The U.S., France, Germany, and Japan are not happy with the Chinese currency, but China, Germany, and Brazil are attacking the U.S. and quantitative easing. And remember that Brazilian Finance Minister Montega, right, attacking Helicopter Ben pretty much personally. Concerning the hot money, this is the issue of capital controls and exchange controls. The people around the world are taking measures, and more measures have actually occurred just in the past week on this. Brazil, Thailand, Indonesia, Taiwan has instituted new limitations, South Africa. So this stops the flow of hot money. This is a way to try to make it so that Soros does not decide the value of your currency, but maybe your government should. There was some discussion on the Millennium Goals and the poor nations, but this is being swept away because of the overall dynamic of the Depression. And as I mentioned, the U.S.-South Korean free trade sellout, thank God, was stopped. Now, the background for all of this, increased instability. But just before we leave Obama, he's now in Tokyo, Japan, for the meeting of the Asia-Pacific Economic Forum. And the goal of this is a Pacific free trade zone. Well, no more free trade. Block free trade. Stop free trade. Free trade is a monstrosity. Free trade is a failure. Protective tariff, 10% and higher as needed. Start with 10%, see how that works. That's really not much of a protective tariff, but let's try to start with something that's more or less a modicum, some minimal level of protection, and then get higher if it turns out that that's not good enough, and convince the population in the process that this is a good thing. This goes against both political parties, because those Republicans, those Tea Party freaks, the coke fiends and cokeheads of the Tea Party, they're all for free trade. In practice, right? Rob Portman, new senator from Ohio, big champion of free trade sellouts. Can't get enough of them. The giant sucking sound. This is the one contribution from Perot that made sense. He was correct. That's actually why the Democrats lost the 1994 election, was because of NAFTA and the free trade sellout. So we're not going to follow Obama to Tokyo. We'll get you the story about that next week. But are we facing global hyperinflation? Well, it's certainly possible. Once again, Wall Street Journal alert to the possibilities. I don't think they say hyperinflation, but that's the idea. You've got oil moving up into the high 80s and up into the $90 range, I guess. You've certainly got gold, which is now over $1,400 an ounce. Congratulations to those who have bought gold. That's meaningful investment, especially if it's liquid. But then we got to look at some of these other commodities and how they are going sky high. And indeed, hyperinflation may be at hand. Back in a minute.